Good evening. Episode number 15, Wednesday night, which is a great night. We've decided to change it up a little bit and head with a Wednesday night show now for the moment, probably up until Christmas. Show number 15, Wednesday the 9th of December. Christmas is sneaking up very quickly. I won't talk too much without getting up a good mate of mine, Mr. Glenn Curran. Good evening, Glenn.
Good evening, Az. Big day in sport, or big day in
Absolutely.
football.
It sure is, that's for sure. Tell me a little bit about how your week's been. Give us a little intro into what's changed in your world in the last few days. Well, a week or so.
A week's a long time. I've started a new job, which has been fantastic. Obviously, a little bit of information overload that comes when you start a new position, just at a company called Win Connect. So basically similar role what I had before, just working as a credit controller. So understand the role, just understanding how they do things at their company, which is good. But yeah, lovely people and enjoying being back in the workforce and also actually being in an office as well. So we've got probably close to around a 30% mark, 35% mark of people slowly filtering back in, which is a good for us, but also good for the bigger picture from a state and then a federal for the country point of view as well.
Yeah, it's great news. Welcome back to the workforce, mate. It's no fun looking for work, that's for sure. But just on that, like there is work out there. And I know we went through a process a bit together and we were discussing kind of opportunities and careers and whether is this the time you make the pivot? Do you go back to what you know? Do you further educate? Like, it's a real question for someone our age, heading towards 50. What do you do? It's potentially the next bracket is where you might be for the rest of your working career, possibly. So, it's an interesting mindset. And has it changed a little bit, and even in the last couple of years since your last role? Just that recruiting process, and what have you found?
Yeah, look, there's no consistency with it. I've found even from 2 years ago, and I don't think you mind us mentioning, it's a really good friend of ours, Wally O'Carroll. I had a really good chat to him about it. As to the biggest thing that he said to me to sort of focus on was not worrying about what you haven't done, but what you have done. So tell people all your roles, but tell people the good parts of your role. Like, don't hide things, but don't common sense.
Yeah, definitely.
You use a network, use friendship groups, whether it's through involvement with your kids' sports, your kids' schools, own circle of friends you've got yourself. You should never be ashamed, and that's probably half the reason we started this podcast, never be ashamed to ask for help if you're prepared to accept the help that's given. So if you're going to go there, hand out, I need a bit of help with this, be prepared to say, look, there's going to be a bit of hurt or whatever. You might have to, as you said, pivot or redirect, but you do it. Yeah,
it's very interesting. I've been doing a little bit of that magic word or words, personal development. It's always an interesting chapter, and it can be confronting at times, because there's sometimes when you ask people for opinions, there's sometimes things you don't want to hear if friends are truly honest with you. And I think it's been, and it's something I think everyone should do, not just that when it comes to a certain point in your life and you have a crossroad, then you kind of look at that development phase. I think it's something we just need to constantly do. But one thing that's really resonated me is no one can change anything other than you. You can look for outside influences. You can be steered in a direction. But at the end of the day, if you're not open to that change and you're not ready for that change, it's not going to happen, is it? So I just noticed my name that's come up on the screen there, AAC laptop. That wasn't kind of ideal, but we'll run with that for the night, because I technically am on my laptop, which is a different setup to normal.
Gone into DJ mode. I like it, mate. A bit like MC
Hammer. Absolutely. Yeah. Very happy let's run with that for now. So big night tonight, AFL draft night. It's kind of snuck up on us, hasn't it? The season sort of snuck away. Then we had Spring Carnival, and we had all these other things happening. We thank God we finally getting some doors open now, which we'll talk through a little bit tonight. But AFL draft night, big expectations, plenty of young kids. It's a massive moment for young kids. We all know about some AFL drafts that we've seen some of our heroes come through the draft system. And look, it doesn't really matter what club you end up. There's 18 great clubs. It's just a matter of how long do you stay at that club. That's the big question. So I think now my thoughts on that is, GWS are a lot more competitive now. The Gold Coast look like they're going to turn the corner quickly. It's not no such thing as just going to a club you don't want to be at anymore. They're all destination clubs, so to speak. So just interested in your thoughts on the draft and expectations, and have we heard about a number one yet? Has it happened?
Yeah, I think the number one that everyone expected to be the number one, the young boy who was destined or looked like going to Adelaide, the Doggies have matched their bid. So
Yep.
Kyrie, I don't want to butcher his surname, Kyrie Ugal or along those lines. He's the one that everyone thought was going to go number one. He's gone number one via the Doggies Academy.
Yeah, so his name's Jamara Ugal Hagen.
Beautiful.
It's a mouthful. It's a mouthful,
and
well. This is what he looks like. What an absolute super specimen. Geez, they don't come out as ringing wet kids anymore, do they? Like, no. I've heard this kid talk, and geez, what a media professional right from the start. And by no means does that mean you go number one or two, but there's so much learnings that come through now, and so much you're taught, and so much opportunity that I think even the kids all the way through to I think that AFL under 18 kind of system's got a real lot to be thankful for, or thank us to be thankful for, is those kids coming through. They're incredible talents, and this kid had an NBA kind of opportunity as well. I'm led to believe. So he's one of those real talented sports person. Obviously, one of them that brings to mind is Khristian Petrarca. That was a very similar kind of vein. Now this kid's nothing like him, but the opportunity to play multiple sports. And generally you find that with those top 10 kids. But there's big raps on this kid. Sadly, he's already been tagged with the Buddy Franklin look-alike and plays like. And, geez, it's going to be hard for this kid. Obviously, it's an idol of his, but pretty big raps if you've passed on those names.
And that's the thing. And look, as you said, look, at this time of the year, obviously being the 9th of December, we've got these young men who are embarking on hopefully a career that will have longevity, not be short-lived. Obviously, there's comparisons that get made to number ones before them, whatever. I think this time of year is also an important time of year for Year 12 people. They've just had that stress and expectation that comes up to the exams, and then, as you know yourself, like even though we did it quite a while ago, then that awesome relief. And I think you get that same sort of build-up, and then almost now I'm drafted. And I think that's where not a lot of, but some kids, and I know a few kids who have been in the system, and a couple of mates I know are pretty heavily involved at that TAC Cup sort of level. And you think, oh, God, that's a burden. Like, you think being compared to Buddy Franklin or Luke Hodge, or if someone's tall and fast and takes courageous marks, Nick Rewell or whatever, or if they were in under or hard-headed on baller, that's your Luke Hodge, your Joel Selwood. But
yeah, look, I think that's sadly what we do now. The kids, it's not just sport. It's every. I talk about it with musicians a lot, and we talked about it with Khristian Mizzi the other day. Is the comparison, and the comparison always comes up. I think it's a great thing to be compared to some of these people. We should never ever take a knock that's what we're being compared to. We're 9 times out of 10, you're almost compared to greatness a lot of the time. So I know that's a great place to be. So. I know we've got a
mimicry. Mimicry can be the greatest form of flattery. If you look at, like, I know you love your Melbourne Demons and your footy, but I know your sort of big passion, like obviously in the background you've got the Storm, but I know that basketball and ice hockey are big passions of yours. From a basketball perspective, if you speak to young kids, they want to have a shot and they want to shoot. I can look over your right shoulder, Air Jordan. It's one of the most iconic symbols of all time. They made a movie like Mike. Why for many years did we say up there Kazali? As much as we all laugh and go, oh, here comes Mike Brady playing that song, because that's what they used to play up back in 1913. I think Roy Kazali played football.
Yeah, well, luckily,
Jesselinko,
no one's beaten the great Mike Brady yet. To rip out a couple of classics on grand final day. We've had some good bands turn up, no doubt, but
for sure.
Now he's also playing the Northern Footy League grand final function. So, to have him standing on Kramer Street in Preston singing that magic song, it's a great moment, and I hope long it lives on. I don't know who's going to take the mantle next.
Well,
it'll be interesting.
As much as like you spoke about the Spring Carnival, and as you said, like footy's crept, the footy draft, and in a way, Christmas has crept up a little bit. Yes, Christmas Day, regardless of a religious belief, is always going to be the 25th of December. But if you look now on the 9th of December, and I know you and I have a couple of little funny chats about Christmas shopping and that, I'm nowhere near where it should be with that. But other things that have happened, like as you said, the footy finished quite late because of the COVID year. The Spring Carnival managed to go all the way through, but the Melbourne Cup was 4 weeks ago. Where's that time gone? Just over 2 weeks, we'll be sitting down in some way, shape or form, however people choose to celebrate with their loved ones, Christmas. And you'll think, the majority of us will think, if you had said, would we be doing this, especially from an Australian and Victorian point of view, where we were in June, you would have thought it was a long way off.
Absolutely. Well, I'll give some word of advice. Shop online. Don't line up. Order this weekend as your last cut off before Christmas, and try and support Australian businesses, preferably. So, look, I hope we've managed to get out of lockdown. I got a little surprise for you don't know about. So, we managed to get out of lockdown. All I'm going to say is I hope we can continue this process out of lockdown. We've got live venues again. We're starting to open the doors. We'll talk about some of these gigs that are coming up all the way up until Christmas shortly, and some guests we've had on. But it's a great time to be alive. It's a great time to be back in Melbourne, smelling the fresh air again without the masks for a while. And the best thing, honestly, to come out of the COVID period was no doubt the EJ isolation sessions with a good mate of mine, Dave Cosma, who's been an absolute superstar. He's put together something different, most importantly. We'll chat through that in a minute. But I'd love to bring up the great man, Dave Cosma. How are you, Dave?
Hey, good to see ya.
Thanks for making a guest appearance again. Welcome back.
It's a pleasure. I've enjoyed the journey with you both, and it's been a good thing to have been a part of early on, and staying involved as a viewer, I guess, over the last however long it's been that you've been doing this, and having some great guests and bringing some wonderful entertainment to the screen. It's great to be back, and I hope you're both going well.
Yeah, look, we are. It's good to get out again. That's for sure. Good to get out again.
Definitely, it's a bit strange almost that we've just had this this process in place for the last 8 months or so, and I think coming out, I've been a little bit maybe anxious is the word to sort of understand how it's all going to unfold and get back into some sort of rhythm, because it stopped so suddenly. I guess there was no time to prep, so everyone had to sort of just get on with it, I guess, and adapt very quickly. So, and then we got into that process, and here we are, things opening up again, which is great, because clearly we don't want to be. I don't want to be stuck in a car singing for the rest of my career. So, and we don't want to be getting Uber Eats for the rest of our lives. We want to be able to get out and go in the restaurants and see the live music and see our friends and family, and again, with us being able to get together with family over Christmas again is going to be a great thing. So hopefully things will start getting back to normal, and we'll enjoy life as we once knew it, I guess.
Absolutely, it's great to be able to see friends and see their faces and see more than just their eyes for now, and get to we're not supposed to hug, but we've started the hug process again. So it's a great place to be. So Dave, just for the people that don't know and haven't come across this super performance component you put together over the COVID period, just tell us a little bit about the inception of it and how it started and where we're up to now.
Look, I think like most people, again, it all hit, and you could either just sit back and be concerned about what was happening and be worried about what was happening. And I was certainly in a position with my industry just overnight. It stopped. So very quickly within that first week or so, and live streams were sort of happening. And I think we forget that there were other parts of the world that were already well ahead in terms of lockdown and that sort of thing. So there were things like live streams happening. They certainly weren't a new concept. But for me personally, I'd never done a live stream. So I thought, well, let's give it a crack. And I thought, well, everyone seems to be sort of just sitting in their bedroom and singing to their phone. I thought I'd just change it up a bit. So I came in the back of my car here and I rolled the live stream and just sort of went with it, and it turned into a lot of fun. It turned into something that people that I knew, clearly friends and fans that I'd already connected with through socials, really got into it, which was great. And then it grew from there in terms of, just through the power of sharing and the power of telling people about what's going on. More people came to the party, and it gave me incentive to keep going. So, I'm ended up doing about 9 or 10 of them specific in terms of the EJ isolation session. So for a period of time with myself and my percussionist Nick was joining me live. I was able to get Charles Jenkins in as a special guest before the hard lockdown came, and that forced me to sort of reinvent again, and I was able to sort of get them involved on a video screen. And it's just, if anything, has just enabled me to stay connected with people with my music, and ultimately, I guess, provide a little bit of entertainment that was a little bit left of centre. And people really enjoyed it. Isolate is another great example of something that came along that just grew, and certainly not comparing the EJ isolation sessions to Isolate, because that thing's just on another level. But it clearly just gave people at home, especially for that time that we couldn't go anywhere, an opportunity to stay connected and aesthetically see something different in the car, and hearing and listening to music, discovering a couple of new artists that they may not have heard before. As I say, I had Charles in here, I had Damon Smith on the video, I had Adrian White. So it's just been a great outlet for me to just express my art, I guess, and it's certainly the polish of live streaming has dulled a little bit, clearly, because things are opening up again and live gigs are coming to the fore, which is really what we want. But I think that it's certainly created something in the industry that, although it may not, as I say, be as prominent as it has been in the last 8 months, I think it's going to be a part of what we do going forward on some level, in some capacity. I hope so anyway, that it continues on some level. And yeah, it's just been really great.
Yep. I think it's been awesome. And I just want to play about a minute of this. I won't play the whole thing, but I'll just play a little bit of this. So when it just cuts out, Dave, you'll know to come back in. But this is a little bit of a sneak preview from the isolation session number 2. And I think it was a really good way that you showed a little bit of the behind the scenes. So it seems like forever ago. So we'll go back a little bit in history with you, Dave.
Are we here? The lights on?
The lights are on.
How's it going? Welcome, everybody. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not too private, just basically about Elvis and the Beatles, basically. Basically. Scotty?
No, that's Scott's.
Yeah, Scott. Scott, no, mate. Oh, he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly... I'm going where I'm going, together we'll be going again. We're on the interwebs. It's falling into place, falling into place. Silence in the EJ. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed it, because we did.
And speak of enjoying it, Dave, absolutely fantastic, mate. You really brought out your true personality, mate. I'm lucky enough to have gone to secondary school with you, mate. I know what kind of a joker and a great front man you'd be. So I cannot wait to get you back live on a stage again, which isn't too far away, I believe. But we've got a little treat in store coming up, actually tomorrow night, believe it or not.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about, I'll just play the little intro first and then you can bring it in.
I can talk on the telephone, talk to you for hours. I'd be cooking dinner, you're editing your photos. I don't see it like you do, I don't see it like you do. I like it when you write to me, colorblind man's lullaby.
Wow, special treat. This one's going to be. Tell us a little bit about this one. I think the first female into the isolated sessions.
Yes, it's long overdue. A lot of testosterone been in here, and it's good to clear it out, and make way for some. Oh, she's an incredible talent, Mandy Connell. She's just an absolute ripper. I've known her for a few years, and I've seen her perform a few times, and look, I just put it out to her and said, look, I'd love you to come along, and she agreed to do so, and I feel very privileged to have. Oh, look, I feel privileged to have had anyone agree to be happy to come along. Charles Jenkins, it's just been great, and to have Mandy come in tomorrow night. She's just such a class act and such a wonderful singer and guitar player that, yeah, it's. I guess when you put something together like this, you don't know how it's being, interpreted out there, at least from other artists too. So, to have her come in tomorrow night, I'm really looking forward to it. She's going to be sitting where I'm sitting, and she's going to be doing, about a 45-minute set of her wonderful folk type songs, I guess. She's just got such a beautiful voice, and she's such a beautiful songwriter. And I hope to jump in here to sing a couple, socially distance myself, and join her on a couple of songs. It's funny actually watching that first video you put up. It was just such a strange time, that whole socially distancing process, and you got to be this far away, and that was the week that it was all happening, and I remember doing it and thinking, geez, I hope people aren't thinking we're not too close here, or we're going to get in trouble, or that sort of thing. So it's just nice that it's done the full circle, and like I say, number 10 to do it and to be able to have a talent like Mandy come on here is it's a privilege for me, and I think it's a real great thing for the viewers that have been on board and will hopefully join us tomorrow night to get to see again for free a talent like Mandy just do her thing, and in the comfort of your own home, in the aesthetic of a 60-year-old car.
Yeah, look, I think it's a great concept, Dave, no doubt. Glenn, I know you got a question for Dave.
Again, Dave, thank you again for the enlightening me, because obviously I know that you and Az go back a fair way, so it's great to see the connection, you getting connected, but me establishing the connection with you.
Yeah,
I've got
great.
a standard question that I've started asking all of our guests. Dinner party, you can invite 5 people. So there's 6 people at dinner. You're one, and you can invite 5 more. They can be living or dead, but it's your pick.
My dad's got to be there. He passed away 5 years ago. So I've got to get Dad there. So I miss him. Of course, Elvis and John Lennon and Paul McCartney. I'm sorry, I know it's so cliche. It's so cliche, but like I would do anything to meet, Paul McCartney. I was reading the article the other day of Davey Lane, who had the pleasure of meeting Paul McCartney, and I know that he holds him at the top of the pyramid. Yeah, he's the top of the hill. So to meet Paul, and I guess have John Lennon there and Elvis and my old man. Is that it? Can I have someone else?
You've got one to come.
I think you got one more.
Yeah, look, you touched on the big MJ behind you before, and I was talking to someone this morning about The Last Dance and how just incredible of a documentary that is, and how incredible of an era that was, and the achievements that he achieved. We talk about the greats and the GOATs and the LeBrons and the Kobes and all the rest of them, and clearly they're all champions. But I'm obviously a bit biased when it comes to MJ because I'm that era, and touching on my early school days with Az, we'd get to school at 8 o'clock and our shirts would be soaked before the bell went because we'd be playing basketball in the quadrangle, and we lived and breathed it. And
Dave, did you have him covered in the quadrangle?
I think
he has talked up his basketball skill just a little bit at times.
No, I wouldn't go as far as to say I had him covered. I wouldn't be that cheeky.
Dave's pretty modest. Remember, he's a guest on our show, so he's being more than modest. But Dave could play back in the day. Dave was very talented, but one thing he was very good at was the guitar and singing and entertaining. And I'm glad he went that angle, but he could have easily chosen sport because basketball, football, and soccer were three things Dave did naturally. So great to have you on, Dave. Great to have you on, mate.
Thank you, and you boys are just again, you've done an incredible thing, and as I say, I hope in some capacity with what you do, it continues on some level going forward, because it's a great thing, and it's really important that that you keep delivering what you deliver. It's like those artists that you've had and the interviews that you've done have been top notch, and you're to be commended.
Thanks,
cheers, mate. And it's great that you've been able to play with a lot of those artists. So I appreciate the intro into a couple of them, Damon Smith being one, who we're calling a personal friend now, which is fantastic. We're going to give him a little plug for his Christmas album. He's just releasing. He's got a few gigs coming up as well. Archie's Creek. He's got coming up this Saturday night. So we'll give those a little bit of a pump. Any gigs on the horizon yet, Dave, or a little bit early? We're still concentrating on I hope there's an EJ album coming out. That's what I really hope. Yeah, look, I've given that a bit of thought, actually. So yes, we will put that to the side of the moment. But yeah, there might be something happening. Look, nothing this side of Christmas. I think I've had a few things going on in with life, I guess, that I think will take me into the new year. But I've got a couple of things already organised for the new year in terms of gigs. So I'm really looking forward. I haven't, not to say that I haven't had the desire to rush out and perform live. I certainly want to do that, but I think that I think venues are still finding their feet in terms of, you mentioned Archie's Creek. They've just done a wonderful thing up there, how they've created that outdoor space. And I'm very privileged that I got to play there. It's my final gig before lockdown, the week that lockdown happened. So it's just such a wonderful setup Pete Foley's got going on up there. And I think venues are doing amazing things, adapting themselves to, I know Mandy's playing, she's got a gig coming up at the Le Monde Hotel, which they're doing in the car park, So people are being innovative. Excuse me again. They're being innovative, and they're just trying to adapt to the new climate. And yeah, look, I'll be jumping on board in the new year, and I look forward to performing live and connecting with also a lot of new fans that I've connected with through this EJ isolation session. It'll be really great to meet some people and to be able to perform for them. Look forward to it, and I'm sure.
And I'll be with you. I'll be with you, buddy. Next week we're going to gig, me and you.
That's right. You'll be there for sure. Ice cream hands. Let's give that a little quick pump before we let you go there, Dave. This is one that
I should have brought in. I should have brought in my personally signed vinyl that Charles gave me last week, but I've left it inside under lock and key.
Just while you're there, we need to touch on another good friend of ours on the show that's always on. He's a little bit busy at the moment, so can't make it. But Berkey was kind enough to invite me up to his house, and we had a intimate 15-odd people. I think it's 15 was the limit, about that, for
good answer.
A session with Chuck himself.
Yeah,
welcome back, little show. It was unbelievable to spend a couple of hours with Chuck up there. It was absolutely super. So Chuck's got a few gigs going. We'll touch on those as well, Dave. But what I just want to touch on is a quick punch and promo again for tomorrow night.
Yes, thank you very much. As I say, Mandy Connell's here tomorrow night, and I will say on an exclusive scoop tonight that there will be another EJ isolation session just before Christmas with a obviously a bit of a Christmas theme to it. Yes.
Well, we look forward to that. Absolutely.
Can we get a date, Dave, or is that this? We'll wait with bated breath.
I think it'll be a few days before Christmas. I don't want to compete with the likes of Dennis Walter on Carols by Candlelight, so I'm going to just pull it back maybe the night or two before if I can. Get myself a couple of people that will tune in, hopefully. But yeah, it's going to be good fun. It's just it's just going to be Nick and I, and maybe a guest to come in just to play a few songs. But it's going to be a few of the old classic Christmas carols and a couple of tunes just to sort of ride out the year, I guess, which has been a crazy one.
Sounds great. Have a carafe with carafe. That'll be a great thing, mate.
Radio.
Enjoy, Dave. I really appreciate you coming on, mate. We'll let you go. I know you've got a busy night preparing for tomorrow night. You've got to set the EJ up again, set the lights up again. New props. We look forward to it, mate. We'll be tuning in for sure.
Aaron, sorry, mate. Go again. Glenn, thank you, buddy. It's been really great talking to you guys again. Aaron, thank you, mate. Always good to talk to you. Hopefully we'll see you guys tuning in on the other side tomorrow night, and I will see you in the flesh next week, buddy.
Look forward to it. See you, mate.
Yeah.
What an absolute champ. He's a great guy.
What a game.
It's funny because Dave and I lost touch there for a lot of years, and it's great to be able to rekindle this. And this is part of what not only lockdown's done, but I obviously saw Dave a few times before that, but being able to catch up and you kind of feel back part of the family again, which is so great too, because Dave's such a talent, and we look forward to having him at any of our next gigs. So who knows, there could be what's been happening live gig one day. That could be the challenge. So that'll be fun.
I must apologise, mate. I can see why that you and Dave may have lost touch. I think Dave is very humble, and I think he may have had you covered in the quadrangle at college back in the day. So that's apologies, mate. That was a question without notice. I should have pre-warned you.
One thing he's definitely got me covered for is talent, that's for sure. So I'm happy to sit in the background and just promote these superstars, and great to be associated with them. But tonight's about a couple of things. What we were planned on doing, or what I planned on doing that didn't tell you about, was just setting up things like looking about what gigs are happening in the next couple of weeks, what gigs are being announced. So a couple of albums that have come out, a little bit that's happening in sport. So let's cover a bit of that off. First of all, AFL draft. You haven't had a chance to have a bit of a check of what's going on. But one thing I want to start with sport. I'll give you a bit of a word without warning there. So what I wanted to touch on was, this was many moons ago now. And Mike Tyson's and Roy Jones Jr. for that matter, pretty young there, to be fair. And
I know where you're heading with this.
Look at the way this was pre-fight promo. And I don't know, man, but he looks better now than he did then. And what is he? 50 what now? Just incredible. Absolutely incredible.
I'm 51 in Feb, and he's got to be my age at least.
Yeah, we probably should have done my homework on that one. But I'll tell you who didn't come back in as good a shape was Roy Jones Jr. And I think it was probably fitting in the end that it was a draw, because I hope this happens again. But Mike Tyson, I honestly think he's really become, and I really hope he has, he seems to have just become a humble man that wants to make good for some of the wrongs that he's done. And he's really leaving a good legacy. And I couldn't believe, I wish I had grabbed the footage of the post-fight interview where he spoke and how humble he was to just say that, he wants to leave a legacy now in boxing and bring other people back and really promote the sport. So, hats off to me. He didn't do all the right things through his life and career, and he was from a rough upbringing. I get all that, and that's not making excuses for him, but it's just so good to see someone that had gone so far down the wrong track and advised by all the wrong people, lost nearly all his money, is to be able to really start to now rebuild his life and leave a legacy. So just interested in your thoughts on the great Mike Tyson, Iron Mike.
Look, Mike Tyson polarised many people early in his career, as you said, because rightly or wrongly, boxing is sometimes considered a tarnish of a sport as the way how people perceive it. And it's often people from the outer, not people on the inner. I think a lot of people see it as a violent sport. Obviously, a sport where people involve punching, the same with kickboxing, there's going to be violence. You look back to watching people like Mike Tyson, even going back further to Ali, Foreman, Liston, those sort of giants of the sport. Then you see one of the most iconic sporting images of all time is Ali at the Olympic Games with his Parkinson's. And a lot of people said, oh, that's not the real Ali, but that's the mellowed down Ali as an older, mature man. I think that's the same, or I hope that's the same with Mike Tyson. You look at a lot of sporting people, you see it in Legends games of AFL, you see it in Legends games in the NBA, hockey, whatever the sport. And you think, oh, that's not, I can't remember John McEnroe being like that, but you can't do something forever. So then you hear the words, and you and I as both fathers say this now, and hopefully we're on the earth for a lot longer to spend time with our children, but you hear people speak about legacies. What legacy have I left? Yes, I can't change what I've done, but I can learn going forward. So what I do, you can't change the past, but as we said earlier on the show, we control the future, or as an individual, you control the future. His life has been boxing for the majority of his adult life. So you can't begrudge the man going to the devil, What legacy he now leaves, there's going to be people who will still say, yes, he's Mike Tyson who bit round and whatever. But at the end of the day, he's still one of the champion boxers. I'll draw a very quick analogy for you. You look at someone like, say, Wayne Carey has had some off-field troubles at times in his life. But at the end of the day, Wayne Carey will go down, in most people you speak to, probably the top 5 footballers of all time. Has he been the perfect person? No, but either is Aaron Cusack or Glenn Curran. So I suppose that's the biggest thing. I actually don't mind watching boxing because
it's incredible technical sport.
It is a very technical sport. Yeah.
And obviously, I'm involved with another organisation, Stop Concussions. So people hear me talk about boxing and they say, mate, so what are you doing with Stop Concussions? Isn't that going against what you're believing? And I said, well, no, it's not, because boxing is one of those careers and opportunities where you know what you're getting. You know what you're signing up for. In a lot of these other sports like AFL and rugby and all that, when these hits have happened over so many years where we're not aware of what's actually the legacy and long-term effects. And it's interesting. I heard Sam Solomon interviewed the other day, and he spoke about him not knowing any actual boxers that had long-term concussion effects. Now, that's an interesting comment because we seem to think a lot of the older boxers, with Parkinson's and all these kind of things, are they part of the concussion component? And it's interesting to hear him say that he believes he doesn't know any. So, and some of those are just natural progressive, say, illnesses or something that come across. And so boxing is considered to actually be quite a safe sport, given that the referees can come in and stop the fight. The questions around the repeated hits and all those kind of things, and is it too brutal? But to me, I would have boxing 10 times over than I watch UFC. UFC is just absolute chaos. And I've watched a lot of kickboxing too with Sam Solomon back in the day, and then he moved into boxing. But it's a whole different life. That UFC, it's crazy, absolutely crazy. I'm not sure if you're into it, mate, but it's not something I can see the appeal for some people, and I can see that when you get into that ring, it's the absolute warfare, right?
Yep.
To the highest degree, and you don't get out unless you tap out, so to speak. You're done. But I just think it's too brutal for me. Too brutal for me.
Yeah, look, I got to know Sam quite well about the time that he made the transition from kickboxing into, I suppose, just straight boxing, like as opposed to fist boxing. And he was talking before about how boxing is actually quite a skilled sport. And you look at Sam, you wouldn't, obviously, he's not a heavyweight, but he was. I remember thinking to the person who introduced me, to the time I said, "Oh, that's Sam Solomon. There's nothing of him." But similar to if you spoke to Jimmy Cassidy or Damien Oliver, there's not much of them, but I'm pretty sure that you and I would struggle to beat Damien Oliver or Jim Cassidy in an arm wrestle. Just what their strengths and
pound for pound, they say, right? But I can tell you, as far as things like confidence, and it's things like a big set of what we call nurries. I'd like to have those guys on top of a horse that they're kind of controlling, but not really. I think it's one of the most bravest sports of all time. And as sad as that story was with Damien Oliver's brother, sadly passing away from a race fall, to have Damien back in the saddle, riding what he does and loves, and then that massive magic moment that we spoke about with Sean Wallace when we did our Spring Carnival wrap a couple of weeks ago was that moment, the moment that did stop the nation, not the race that stopped the nation. And it was, I still look back on it and remember that day clearly, and I've got a picture in my mind of, that saluting. It was just an incredible moment in racing.
Because it's the devil, and as much as with what's gone on with this year, sport, life, work, family, whatever it might be, at times we're going to have to say, okay, this way's the roadblocks come up, so what do we do? Do we just backtrack and panic, or do we go around it, find a way to go around it? And you look at, as you know, you and I like to bet, we're probably two of the world's punters, but the racing industry,
I bet $1.
Dogs, greyhounds, has found a way to continue, and I may be incorrect in this, but I don't think they had even one positive COVID case in the whole industry across the whole country. Now,
I think from a sporting point of view, that was
amazing.
an incredible effort, and to keep so many people employed during that time, hats off to the racing industry. And they take a few knocks, no doubt, and the greyhounds business took a few knocks as well. But
and they took some big knocks, mate. Sorry to talk over there. They took some big knocks, like with the animal lives, and look, I went out with a former girlfriend of mine was heavily involved in that, and I can see parts of what they say, but at the end of the day, there is people who this is their livelihood. So the true, whether it's harness or gallops or dogs, they actually love they love the animals.
Yeah, I was just about to say, do yourself a favour if ever you think that these guys aren't doing the right things by their animals, get out and talk to a few of them. Go to a race meeting, hang out with a few of them, and find out who really loves these horses and any of these animals, the dogs as well.
Don't go to a Melbourne. Go to Stony Creek on the school holidays on a midweek when it's a picnic thing, and meet the people who, similar to Damien Oliver, that's an absolute tragedy, him losing his brother. But I may have mentioned to you in the Spring Carnival wrap-up, he lost his father as well too. His father died in a race ball as well. Now, but that's their life. It's like I'm not a fan of Formula One. A lot of people who love Formula One, you look at that crash that happened a couple of weeks ago, a catastrophic crash, but the bloke walked away and people said, how do you walk away because of the measures and the safety that, even though they're going at hundreds of miles an hour, hundreds of kilometers an hour, it's heavily regimented. And that's the thing with boxing as well. If it's done right, you'll find a way to sort of maintain the sport and keep the sport going.
Yeah, it's interesting because they talk about mismatches, and that's when the fights get dangerous. And this is one that's coming up. Paul Gallen versus Mark Hunt. Now, Mark Hunt switched over from UFC. The guy's an absolute powerhouse. Paul Gallen's had a couple of fights, had a draw against Barry Hall, which is a bit of a setup fight. So this is what it's going to look like. I don't like it personally, but I can understand the crowd and the attraction and trying to promote that. But yeah, I just think good luck to them. Just switch code and switch careers and try and make a bit of a go of it. But I don't know. I fear for someone like Paul Gallen going up against someone that's a trained fighter and has been a fighter his kind of life. It's. I just don't think it's the right call.
Yeah, look, I tend to agree a bit, and I'll be careful what I say, because obviously it's not something I've watched boxing, but obviously when you got the cross code situation, it can get a little bit, it can wreak a little bit of tokenism at times. And I think also I've just heard on the radio driving home one afternoon this week, there's another guy, I'm going to say influencer, that's the word I'll go with, someone called Sai or Kai or something, and he's worked his way up, he's been influenced, and now he's fighting, I think, either a kickboxer as well, it's the same sort of thing. I understand why, but then I don't understand why as well, if that makes sense.
Yep, it's becoming bigger and bigger. Money versus opportunity, I guess you'd say, because Floyd Mayweather's supposed to be coming out of retirement to fight this social influencer. It's just it's disaster. It's got disaster written all over it, and that could be the one you're talking about. But I am. Sorry, mate, go.
So with Floyd Mayweather, it puts them and Mark Hunt as well. They're actually put in a difficult situation. Yes, there's going to be a person, there's going to be a paid at the end of it. But if they don't go hard, they'll say, well, mate, what are you doing? But then if they go too hard, they're going to say, mate, you're killing the bloke. I'm at times a bit old school. Footy, cricket, basketball. If you step across the line, don't then after the game say, I shouldn't have played, or I wasn't right, or it's not my wheelhouse. You're happy to take the cash and the exposure, whatever. So you've got to take what comes with that as well. And I know that's simplifying it, but I think at times we've got to do that. We live in the grey a bit too much, whereas things are a lot more clearer than what they should, or we make them a bit more unclearer than what they should be.
Yep, absolutely. I know you're not a massive fan of this, but I do want to quickly touch on this. And this was one of the most amazing things I've seen in world sport recently. And this was the view from the back where the marshals were. And he hadn't got out of the car at this stage. And there's one of the marshals kind of at the front there, which is actually the inside of the track. Just incredible. And we talk about safety and how safety's changed sports and things like that. And that's one thing. If ever there was a knock on that thing they called the halo, which is at the front of the edge of the cockpit area, it literally saved his life. It's so great to see that. And then the weird part is we finally get racing after an hour, and then this happens. We get a car flip on its head, and he's okay too. Just incredible that the safety of the sport, and there still will be accidents and deaths and stuff. But like we said, we understand what these guys are signing up for, and they're not signing up to take their life away by all means, but it's a super dangerous sport. And that's kind of why we love things like F1. I mean, this was the what was left over of the car, mate. There's just nothing there. And that little gap in the middle is where he kind of went through. So it was kind of incredible. But for the first time, Lewis Hamilton hadn't raced, and it's been many years since he hadn't raced. Obviously tested positive with COVID. They did the right thing, and he's had to pull out for a week. They've run a Grand Prix since. But one of the best things that's happened in F1 during the week was the signing of Mick Schumacher. the son of the great Michael. Now, sadly, he's not going to go straight into a Ferrari. He's signed by Haas, the team Haas, but he's just won the Formula 2 championship, which is the rung down. And what a great opportunity for this kid to not necessarily have to go up against his dad's name straight away because he's not in a Ferrari, but so good to see a father and son combo coming through like we've seen before in the sport, but an unbelievable special name, the Schumacher name for sure.
Oh, definitely, mate. Like, we've spoken many times in our show in, a lot of sports. We touched on Damien Oliver and his brother and father's influence in his career. From a footy perspective, for example, Essendon, Dustin Fletcher, Ken Fletcher before him, the Silvanis. Now, obviously, with Schumacher, like, being our generation, I know you're a passionate basketballer, but for me, and I wasn't a big Formula One person, but someone said to me, Formula One, Schumacher. I probably couldn't even tell you the car he drove, but as we've said a couple of times, Formula One, Schumacher. Basketball, Jordan.
Yep.
Football.
Well, I tell you,
yeah,
the next most amazing thing that is coming up in the future, and I heard a little whisper of this, I don't know how true it is and when it's going to happen, but apparently LeBron has put on the table that his next contract, and when I argue that next contract, well, how long is this guy going to play for? Well, he'll play for as long as he can walk.
Yep.
The next contract is when his son's very close to being drafted in the next year or so, a couple of years. He's going to put himself on the table and say, whoever drafts my son gets me. Now, that will be incredible to see a father and son combo in the NBA. I don't think it's ever been done. I'm not sure. I've got to do my research on that one. But if anyone knows, please post a comment or later on. But I think that's absolutely incredible. And that will be a legacy that probably won't be broken, I don't think.
Should I get on the phone to the Melbourne Tigers now and see if they can maybe just put it out there to get the first offer in? Might not be the last offer, but get the first one in. Bit of father-son.
How good would that be? Bring him into the NBL. Maybe Lindsay might put the shorts on again and get Andrew back out there as well. That would be incredible. The great A Gaze.
What's that? Sot goat? Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll leave that one with you to work out that one. Yep. So a couple of things coming up during this week. There was this one that happened last night. Two great artists that were on our show. Sadly, Berkey and I didn't get to this one. We're just too tired in the end and we didn't make the run. But this would have been great to see, and I look forward to a couple of updates on that. But Khristian Mizzi, who was on last show, Greg Champion, who was on about 4 or 5 shows ago. What super talents, and I can't wait to see these guys live coming up in the future. So look forward to that one coming up. There's another one coming up, which is tomorrow night. Davey Lane, the great Davey Lane from UMI, is really kicking on now in a solo career as well. He's got some super new tracks on his latest album, so get that one. I can't wait to go to that one with Berkey tomorrow night. Interesting enough, most of the gigs are doing kind of not a matinee, but an early show and a late show, given numbers at the moment.
Yep.
Tickets are kind of getting expensive for some gigs, given capacities, but that'll start to change coming up shortly. Charles Jenkins, who's been another great guest of ours, is going to be back at the retreat. This one's a paid gig, whereas he's probably the best unknown talent as far as great hidden talent for a lot of people. A lot of people don't know Chuck, but he's an incredible artist, absolutely amazing. And to have that gig at Berkey's last weekend was absolutely super. So Sunday, December 13 and Sunday, December 20, Chuck's doing 2 shows. He's actually doing 4 shows in total. So he's doing an early show and a late show at the retreat, which are all sold out, which is unbelievable. Fantastic effort, Chuck. Couple of other things coming up on the 17th and 18th. Ice Cream Hands, which is Chuck's original lineup and band. Full band will play at this one. So there's been an extra show announced. So there's 4 gigs here. Once again, an early and a late. John Curtin Hotel, and they're very close, if not sold out. So they will be super to go and see. Just to keep this running while I keep talking, feel free to jump in any time,
Okay.
Berkey.
You
We're
call me
wandering
Berkey.
over.
You
Sorry,
call me
Kane.
Berkey.
No, I was thinking of Berkey. So sorry, apologies for that, Berkey. We can't wait
Well,
to have
mate,
you back, mate. We
it's
need you
great to be.
doing these reviews, not me. Greg Champion is going to this time a bit of a road trip down to Sorrento. Be great to have him. Good luck to the people down Sorrento and Rosebud, the 5th and 12th of December. The great Greg Champion. A lot of people only know him for the Coulda Beans, but he's an incredible folk singer and artist and absolute superstar. So get on board that one too. Another one reformed band recently, the Casanovas. These guys were big and going to go big at one stage, and then the band disbanded or fell apart for a little while. And on the right hand there with the mo that looks like Ringo is the great Brett Wolfenden, who's been in a few bands and is in many bands actually. And he is the drummer, the newly formed band again, the Casanovas. So this will be fantastic at a new venue called the Stay Gold in Brunswick. It's pretty close to sold out too. A late session. Well, they're going to matinee, 2 sessions, and then a late session. So work that out. There's too many gigs there for me. I think you'd hide in the toilets and stay for the next one if you could until they clean you out. We mentioned.
Is that speaking from
sorry,
experience?
Mate?
Is that speaking from experience that you may have done that before?
Absolutely, mate. I might have snuck in and probably the old days of the movies where you used to jump in and watch a movie for free under the seats before they didn't clean the back rows out.
Before you go on to the next thing, is that one of the greatest things to have done, being our vintage and now obviously being only, I think, the one drive-in Victoria? There may be a second one that I'm not aware of. I know obviously of the one down in Germana. That was the best one. One of a very good mate of mine. I won't name him, but he is now a member of the constabulary, and we thought it'd be a good idea one night to get a couple of us in the back of his Mazda, just a 4-door Mazda. So we drove up, and look, we were so unsubtle about it. We only decided to get 2 blokes in the boot about 100 metres from the gate. So he's in the driver's seat, I'm in the passenger seat, no one in the back seat, but 2 guys lying in the boot. And the first question, they wind down the window, and the guy said, "How many guys in the boot?" And straight away, Greg and I went, "Oh, 2." And he goes, "Well, you better pay for them as well."
Yeah, there's
just that. No,
can't wait to sneak into a few festivals again. You're never too old.
Exactly right.
Never too old. I can't wait for some of these bands to come back out and talk about renew and relive your youth again. I can't wait to get in amongst it. Eddie Zammit, quick shout out from Eddie Zammit, who we've had on the show. Mad Tiger. Can't wait to have Eddie on to talk about his life and career in the T-shirt industry and love of T-shirts. So we'll get Eddie on probably after Christmas now, I'd suggest. Sorry, mate, keep going.
Great announcement to hear. You mentioned the Casanovas before, and a band having a sabbatical for whatever reason. One of the greatest bands to have a sabbatical of all time have announced a world tour, and obviously coming to our shores next year in Guns N' Roses.
Yep, we'll do. I think maybe next week we might do the big bands tour of who's coming, but definitely Guns N' Roses. That'll be great. I think that's like November next year or something. It's a little while away, so plenty of gigs to promote between now and then. One that's coming up this weekend that I'm doing a bit of a road trip for on Sunday, a couple of hours away, Archie Creek Hotel, the Marshmallow Overcoat. This is it. They play 60s. Mainly 60s, Ash Naylor, the great Ash Naylor, Davey Lane and Brett Wolfenden again. So these guys are unbelievable. I absolutely love listening and watching these. This is literally like the Beatles, the Who. They're all together, mate. They're absolutely super. So if you haven't seen them, get on board and have a look at them. Nearly sold out all the time. So they kind of rarely play together. And I dare say they never practice together. They're just those kind of 3 musos you throw in a room and they just nail it because they love it and know it so well. So that's going to be another gig coming up shortly. Another one, Archie's Creek's actually on fire at the moment. They've got a couple of great gigs coming up. Here's another one on the 19th. Tim Rogers from the head man of UMI and Davey Lane from UMI as well. So that's nearly sold out, that one. But Damon Smith, who was on our show, that one's Greg Champion. That was actually this Sunday as well. So Greg Champion's out really punching the gigs at the moment, which is super to see. I think he might have even had one. He had that one at Portsea around that similar time. So he's going to be a busy man, that's for sure. There was one other here I was just trying to find. Give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
No, doesn't matter. What I do want to show is someone that was on our show last week, and we just touched base with him. I just want to play this little clip from Damon Smith.
A roaring fire is a wonderful thing, although for Santa Claus, coming down a chimney with said roaring fire at the bottom is not ideal. It goes without saying that coming down a chimney with a roaring tiger at the bottom is also not ideal. Either way, Santa would face a challenge and would more than likely spend some time in a hospital, which would blow his cover entirely and sullen the mystery of Father Christmas forever. The chimney is a conduit for easy entry into a household for both Santa and burglars. Although by using a chimney like a laundry chute, you run the risk of facing great danger like that tiger before. Now this is a pretty good chimney. Yes, Santa would use this, I'm sure. This one is not so good, and these ones are way off the mark. It does make you think though, how does Santa get presents into a factory situation with chimneys like this?
Just a little pump promo that we do for artists that have been on the show. So I look forward to. We're going to have a 3-hour show some days because we're going to have so many artists that have come through our shores here, blown through in the wind, and it was super to have Dave come back and join us quickly there to preview another gig. But that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to bring artists on that have got things happening and talk about how different life is. So just a little quick pump to that cover Christmas album. I've listened to a couple of tracks and my God, this kid's a talent. I forgot how good he was, and there's not much he can't play, that's for sure. We had him on, and he was really interesting to have a chat to a couple of weeks ago. One thing that's about to start, Glenn, is I'm not sure if this is any of your loves, but what about these guys? I think this kicks off tonight, but
yeah, I think you might be right.
Getting ahead of themselves a little bit there on that photo.
Look, at the end of the day, without passing judgment, I'll just make this comment. If someone's prepared to pay you to do something and it's something you enjoy doing and you can have a bit of a laugh at yourself, I'm not going to bag someone for doing it, if that makes sense. I'll just straighten up my crooked glasses. But, look, I think I'm not a traditional cricket fan. I watch it from back in the days of Come On Aussie, Come On. Cricket's a bit, to the traditionalists, Big Bash in all forms is a bit hit and giggle. But if you speak to the networks who have it, ka-ching, 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 ka-ching.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
It's probably exposed a lot of young men and women and given them the opportunity that they might not have got. Whether they're obviously first our local talent, which I think a lot of the sides do try to promote the local talent, but then you've got the international superstars who we would probably never know about, who might be the 15th man picked in the first 11 for their country. But here's an opportunity to see them. And it's, look, the good thing I think I like about the T20 to watch is you don't need to watch it all. It's pretty fast. It's pretty quick. Normally takes about 2 hours. And I think, as you said, there's either a game on tonight or tomorrow night, which is a double header. Because, as I said to my family just tonight, this time of year is a funny time of year. The lead up to Christmas with the Spring Carnival gone, even with the overlapping of footy finishing late, I was a bit surprised. I think there's been 3 T20 games and a one day in the last week. And unless you've got pay TV, which I know a lot of people have, wasn't on any feeder at all.
Yep.
Which
And just a
I know,
photo from last night. I
yeah,
think it was last night's game. The Aussies got a win. So thank God they got a win because they were looking pretty average. They were 2 down in a 3 series against possibly the best T20 one day team in the world. So just when we think we're getting somewhere, we get a little bit ahead of ourselves. So look, we've had some great eras, the Australians, no doubt. And I grew up, we've both grown up being so lucky to see so many awesome cricketers. And I can't wait to get a couple of mates on that are real cricket nuts. And we'll talk about a bit of cricket love. But one story during the week, this kid potentially was going to be the next opener for Australia.
So sad.
And you know, this is what we see during the week. Another concussion of this kid, Will Pekoski. So sad to see. I think my mum texted me that it's about number 6 or 7 concussions. And I don't know. Is it a technique thing? What's his kid doing wrong? Is he just that much bad luck? Or I believe he got himself in a position where he didn't judge the ball. But you can't get this good and this close to the top without having good technique. So I'm really kind of interested in this kid's story. And you know, you just can't be that unlucky 6-7 times, can you?
You wouldn't think so, but just listening to him, I heard him interviewed, obviously, prior to him getting hurt later in the week. And just, I'm not saying he was blasé or cavalier, but I think that's his strength, that, yes, I have had a bit of bad luck or whatever, but he said, because I think the question was asked, how do you feel about the opportunity to possibly be playing for Australia in the first test? And he said, look, I'll just go out there and do what I do. Now, I think if you look back through, as you said, we're being blessed with cricketers, but I think now the game is like most sports, that's so analysed, like a bowler. If someone has even the littlest chink in their armour as a batsman, the bowler will expose that. Not to be nasty, just it's that we have to win the game. So I think, as I said, cricket, I'm not a cricket tragic. Your cricket tragic will say, I think that could be the little thing. He makes some amazing, he's had some amazing innings already this season, but I think once he's up and about, he's up and about. Like I think the comparison that I've seen for this, the short couple of times I've seen him, I look at Mark Waugh, Viv Richards even. I know there's a lofty comparisons to make, but as you can remember, Mark Waugh, if Australia were 3 for 10, he'd bat it exactly the same way if we were 3 for 300. He'd play his shot straight away. So look, I hope that young Will is able to find a way, one, to get, obviously, first and foremost, hopefully there's no long-term effects from this, and then find a way that he can possibly tweak his technique, because, look, the young man's obviously a prodigious talent. And hopefully he gets that opportunity to show that in some shape or form for his country.
And my beautiful mum that's tuning in, is probably our only viewer, has just texted me and said 8 times. So it's been plenty of concussions, sadly. 1's too many, 8's definitely too many, and we really hope that none of them prove to be anything long-term. But there was a bit of damage to that helmet, I believe. So look, let's wish the kid well. Let's speedy recovery. Surely you can't play him in an opening test coming up, so we've got to rejig our lineup. But hopefully he can get back in and sneak a test before the end of this season.
Look, I think it's the classic thing in sport. A door closes for someone, opens for someone else. From what I've gathered looking at the scores this week, Cameron Green's obviously not enjoying the fact that Will Pekoski's been hurt, but he's obviously taken the bull by the horn, has made some lofty scores. Unfortunately, Joe Burns didn't. So does that open up a spot? Just on the great game of cricket, there was a lot of discussion this week about who should be captaining the side, and is Tim Payne the captain going forward? I think the other night, Matthew Wade captained the the one-day team or the T20 team, and there was a bit of a uproar about that because he doesn't even captain his state.
Yep.
Thoughts on that, mate? About who should captain? Should the best player captain the side?
I don't necessarily think so, no. And that's generally what happens, though. The best player, almost the best player becomes. And if you look back on history with Border and a few others through Australia, were they the best player? Probably in the end they were. But look, Steve Smith, given all the controversy that happened, does he just walk in and become captain again? I don't think so. I don't think he should. Has Tim Payne done anything wrong to lose it? No. So why shouldn't he keep it? But I'm not against having a one-day captain and a test captain. I think we've done that before. So that should be a common thing. It's interesting we've still got an Australia A team. So at that point, we're obviously still developing great kids. It'll be great to have some more Victorian kids in there, as we've always pushed for. That will come by default as generations of selectors and things move. But it's always been a very New South Wales heavy focus, and obviously Steve Smith being one of those. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm really undecided. I don't really mind. I'm not against just giving him back the captaincy. I'm undecided whether that's the right thing to do. I think whether he knew about what happened or what was going to happen, the jury's always still going to be out on that. Has he served his penance, so to speak, and done his time? Yeah, absolutely he has. So, like Warner, people are quick to not forget completely, but should forget. And I think they've done everything they can. They've served their penance, mate. So I think they deserve a shot. I don't know if he deserves to be captain though. That's all. So I think you got to earn that stripe, and someone's got to be prepared to give it up. So that'll be very interesting. And one thing that I know on that, as far as giving something up, is LeBron and Davis are actually swapping numbers this year. Davis is going to go 23, and it's going to be a reverse flip, which is very interesting. And they wanted to do that apparently when Davis came to LA, and that didn't happen because they got told they had too many jerseys with the number 23 on the back with LeBron. So what an interesting thing that'll be to follow. I can't remember too many players doing the switcheroo from their original numbers. So that'll be interesting to follow. Jordan obviously did it a couple of times and tried it, but went back to the 23 because it's one of those things like cricket. It's one of those sports that becomes very superstitious with numbers and processes and what you do and how you go about it. And football is very similar. So, Glenn, we can talk for hours, and we probably will another time, I'm sure. But I just wanted to touch on a couple more things before we finish up. And now, this is
a surprise, because you said earlier that was a surprise, but that was lovely, a great surprise.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed that.
Yes.
It came together kind of last minute. But
when you said you had a surprise for me, I thought, surprises are good, but you have been known at times to just give me a little, not so much in this format, but in other formats, just a little surprise. And I think, oh, no, what's he going to drop on me now? But it's okay, all good.
No problem. One thing I wanted to touch on is a couple of album releases. And this is one by Powderfinger. And if you haven't watched it, please jump on Powderfinger's website and watch the making of these and how they decided which tracks and stuff would go on this album. It's absolutely fantastic. It was filmed by the guys during the isolation period, and they actually jumped on and played tracks themselves, or played each track on this album actually, talked about it and spoke about it, and all played from different areas or houses or wherever they were and locations, and then obviously overdubbed some of it. But I thought it was just brilliantly done, and I'd love to see more bands do something like that. But to talk about, I don't mean pick up where they left off, because this is stuff that they'd recorded ages ago. But absolutely brilliant to put another album together, and there's no doubt Powderfinger will reform at some point, or have to. There's too big an opportunity for bands right now that are coming back to come and reform, like Guns N' Roses are doing. AC/DC never went anywhere, but now they're back on the road post with the new lineup, obviously they're going to have now. So that'll be interesting. A band that I loved in the 90s, 2000s, Something for Kate, have just released a new album as well. They're absolute superstars, so check them out too. And one I wanted to touch on was a great band that I've always loved, Midnight Oil, and featuring a Jimmy Sharman's Boxers tee today for the Powder Workers, which is a Midnight Oil group. It raises money for special causes. So a great song, and I always loved Midnight Oil, and I cannot wait. They've just reformed, and sadly Bones Hillman passed away. His dying wish was that the band continued with this world tour that they're about to do. That'll be unbelievable. WOMAD is part of that, WOMADelaide. That will be unbelievable. And there's going to be other gigs as well, so I cannot wait to get amongst that with a few mates. But one I wanted to touch on was a great song and album of theirs, Species to Species. Now, Ash Naylor, part of Even, one of Australia's best guitarists and frontmen in a couple of bands, and plays with the great Paul Kelly as well. He has put together this tribute to Midnight Oil, and I can tell you, classic Molly Meldrum, do yourself a favour, get on board and have a listen to this one. It's an absolute ripper. But I want to touch on just Even, a band I absolutely love, these three guys. It's kind of got a real Oasis look about that album cover, with Liam Gallagher and Noel Gallagher, but these guys are absolute superstars, and have been around for a long time, played over 30 years. I'd probably given them a bit of credit there, might not be that long, but they're very good. And they're releasing some new vinyl recently. And also Ash Naylor has just done a solo album, which this guy just needs more credit, honestly. He's an unbelievable artist, so I can't wait to see Ash on the weekend at this other gig, which was Marshmallow Overcoat, so can't wait to get amongst that. So there's lots of can't waits to do's in there. There's so many things to do, way too many things to go and see. All I would say to everyone is get off your bum now. It's time to get out and support some of these venues, these cafes, these shops. Please don't stand too close together in the shops, and make this all go pear-shaped on us. What amazes me is what's just happening at the airports. People walking around untracked, walking through without really, I heard one today, people from South Australia just walking around, not even being asked where they were from and all these kind of things at our domestic airport. I just think we've got to be doing something better here. This is going to go pear-shaped otherwise. And hopefully, first parts of quarantine have gone well. So I believe we've nipped it in the bud, so to speak, with some positive or possibly positive tests and quarantine them. So let's hope we're doing all the right things here, because there's no doubt we need people in here. We need tourism. We need the doors open, but we just got to do the right thing, don't we, Glenn, and keep them open.
Yeah, and as you said, like, touching on the airport thing, I was watching something the other night, and there was I think a Channel 7 thing, but it was a national sort of news, and I saw scenes on 3 airports, Tullamarine, Sydney, and I think Brisbane, and I was the same. I'm thinking, I know they tend to isolate certain things and probably make it look worse than what it is, but to me, before, what's today, Wednesday, before Sunday, it was in airports or confined spaces, mask, keep the safe distance, and I thought that's not happening.
I honestly think we must be waiting for a blowout again for the numbers to start going up, the rise, and then the mask coming. Why can't we just take preventative action, like you do when you're working with wood or welding or whatever? You put a mask on. That's the process. That's what you do. That's all preventative measures. I just don't see why we can't continue to do that. Yes, it's not great. Yes, you got to use your brains. You got to think. As you said, you commonly say, common sense isn't so common these days, and it's so true. And I wish everyone would just be a little bit more conscious of the people around them. And we will all get through this, but we've got a long way to go. The vaccine's early. We've got to get through to next winter, or we're going to be locked down again, and no one wants to go through this again.
And that's the unfortunate thing. And like, you and I are not researchers or whatever, but it's not like you've got a leaky tap, call the plumber, he fixes the leaky tap. This is a virus, so this might not have a cure. This might have a containment, so a vaccine. So the vaccine is not going to be the be-all and end-all. And as I said, I preface all that by saying this: I'm not an expert. What I am, though, is people get frustrated when I do silly things, whether it's my family, my friends, whatever. The number of times that we've been down to our local cafe, gone for walks or whatever, yes, we've been drinking as we're walking, but we've dropped our mask. But as soon as someone comes near, we put the mask up or pull it, whatever it might be. But the interesting thing now, and it's great to have restrictions lifted, but now it's so awkward. Like, as I said, starting in your job this week, so there's a percentage of us back in our office, but 3 people today went to shake my hand, and so did I, because is that okay now? No one sort of knows, and that's
Yep.
And I don't say that blaming Andrews, blaming Morrison, blaming whoever. But it's the sun's out, it's all good, no cases, which it's been a long time and whatever.
Yep.
But just keep doing the right things, because as you said, southern hemisphere is in warmer conditions. Look at whether you agree with what they're doing, but look at our friends in the northern hemisphere. Look at the UK and Europe, and look what's happening in America. It's pandemic to massive proportions. Like,
yeah, it's frightening numbers, and
numbers
thinking
today, like hundreds of thousands, like in America.
Yeah.
Not 10.
And thinking of our friends in America and Canada and the UK that we all know, and please stay safe to all of you, and try and do the right thing. But 2 things I just want to quickly touch on before we go is acknowledging once again the number 1 draft pick. This will be a name that we won't forget, Jamara Ugle-Hagan. It's a mouthful. He's going to get a nickname. Yep. There's no doubt. We'll have to work out what that is. We'll give him I'd like to know if he's related or what the story is with the great Troy Ugle from the West Coast. I think there's got to be some sort of relation there. Yep. I cannot wait to do that. And you don't might not know this one, but I'm not sure if this is where he was destined to go for. But Nicholas Cox, he's going to the Bombers, mate. How good is that? So great and Northern, very much a local boy, Northern Footy League, Montmorency, where we're from, local junior, is now gone to your beloved Bombers. So that'll be a great one to follow. Good on it. What do you know about Nicholas Cox at all? Anything?
Look, from what I've heard, he's just a young man who has got a lot of potential. And I say that not to put any pressure on him. I think his dad played VFL footy back in the day. So that in itself obviously lends to he and his parents and siblings will give him great support. Look, I just wish the young fellow all the best. I think Essendon highlighted him pretty early on. Look, as I said, I think it's just great for the young man. He's got an opportunity, like all the young men tonight who got drafted. They've got, as you said, there's 18 clubs who, as much as we all know that Richmond are looking a powerhouse again, there's 18 clubs who think next year they're going to win a premiership. So these young men get a chance to be a part of it. I just hope they have long careers with no injuries and they enjoy it and get as much enjoyment out of sport and life that we have at our age. As I said, their journey in their sporting life from a professional point of view is just beginning, and I hope it's a good and a fruitful one for them all.
Yep, absolutely. And one last one to finish off is my beloved Demons, because we've touched on your Bombers. Who have we chosen? Once again, another local Northern Footy League kid. This is absolutely great news, fantastic news. And also from the Diamond Creek Demons, which is absolutely super that we've been able to do that. So Bailey Laurie, and I hope it's not Laurie Bailey. Let's work out which way that is, but I'm pretty sure it's Bailey Laurie. Pick number 22, famous name and number. It won't be his number, but it was the pick number 22, and a famous number at Melbourne with the great Shane Woden and a few others. I think Chris Connolly, 22 back in the day. So that will be interesting. Before that he was at Beverly Hills Junior Footy Club, and through to the Oakley Chargers. So the Oakley Chargers are superstars again. And I'll be interested to know how many kids have come through from the under-18 system. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to throw you back a challenge, mate, for next week's show, is give us a little top 10 of the draft, and let's try and pick the next Brownlow medalist out of that little group.
Okay.
That could be a bit of fun. So let's talk about.
I'll answer
Sorry,
your
mate.
question.
Yep.
So I'll do that. We'll see if we can. I'll see if I can pick the next one of the top 10. Can you tell me of the number one draft picks up until this point, who's won the Brownlow medal?
No, I can't, to be honest. I would struggle to tell you.
Would you like to phone a friend?
No, we're running out of time on that discussion.
He's played at my
I'll
club.
ask you, though.
He's played at my club in the Western Bulldogs.
Yep, don't put me on the spot like this, Glenn. It's still no good. Okay,
Cooney.
Yep, the great Cheezel. How good is that?
I should have gone with the Cheezel, man.
Yep. Yeah, that is great. He's a great player, no doubt. So lots of things to talk about in the next few weeks. Let's kind of see where we are in the next week. In fact, for the first time, we've actually been able to get a guest ready, promoted, and we're going to announce it on tonight's show. And here we are going to talk next week a little bit of getting back in shape, Glenn. You and I, we're going to set ourselves a bit of a mission, and all of our beloved fans. But one guy I want to bring up is just a absolute superstar. Look at this young kid. Absolutely puts me to shame. Now, I've never had a body like that, and he would be a few years younger than me, not too many, but what an absolute superstar. And I cannot wait to have Aaron Lapira on next week. Body Revival, if you don't know, do a bit of research and homework. He was on the Spartan show with a couple of blokes from his gym called the Body Revival Sharks, they called themselves. But Aaron is an absolute superstar. He's super passionate about fitness, super passionate about nutrition, and we will talk about all sorts of things like that, and mental health, what it did for his gym and a couple of gyms he's got during COVID, the bounce back after COVID, and I'm really excited to have him on. I've tried to get him on a few times, obviously been a busy man, so I cannot wait to have him on, so we finally get to promote it. And in the new year, we are going to make a massive effort of bringing on a couple of female artists and connections of mine. So we've put the feelers out. Dave's starting the process, bringing one into the EJ, which is absolutely super. So tomorrow night, once again, the EJ isolation sessions, get on board Dave Cosma. He is the man, no doubt. So get on board and see Mandy Connell with Dave Cosma. So look forward to that. Dave, we're going to leave it there, Cuz, unless you've got anything else to wrap.
Oh, no, look, love to get some female artists on, and we also should try to in the new year, like as we know, we won't name names yet. We'll keep the listeners and watchers guessing, but we both have a couple of well-known sporting identities, and I think we should try to get some of our female sporting stars on, whether it be from an AFLW or even some of the cricket stars. And I think we've got a few contacts that can reach out and get them on for the new year for sure.
Sounds good. Yep. And just so I didn't fail to acknowledge Jamara Ugle-Hagan as the first Indigenous player drafted at number 1 since 1999. Yeah, since 1999. Who was it in 99? That's another question. 99. And I'll leave that one with you for next week, Glenn.
Beautiful.
You can give us a bit of a rundown. So we might start talking local sport as well, like very local to us when we start talking footy and the wind up of footy coming back, cricket coming back. We'll try and get a few friends on that we know well and just have a general chat. So Lovey, we're reaching out to you now, mate. Get ready to come back on, mate. We'll change the day for you if we have to. We need to get you on. Berkey, we need you back. Billy Hewitt, we need you back. I'm going to reach out to all of those.
Billy Hewitt. Billy Hewitt, we need Billy back. He was quality early on, but then fell off the map a little bit.
Billy teased us with a beautiful effort, come in once, hit the ground running, set the standard high, and then went missing. So we can't wait to have Billy. I know I tried to get him on tonight, and he's decided he's out. having dinner, and that's great to see. Out
Which is
supporting
Good.
local venues like we talked about. So I'm going to
Yeah,
leave it at
fun.
that. I'm going to bring up the promo for next week and leave it at that, Glenn. So thanks, mate. Great to have a chat. We could talk
as
for
always.
hours. We could talk for an hour and a half of a 45-minute show. So fantastic to do that as always. Cheers, mate. Catch you soon.
Thanks, mate.